Picture this. A 7-year-old wakes up. The room is still dark, right? The sun hasn't even properly breached the horizon yet. And before their feet even touch the floor, before they stretch, before they even really process being awake, they reach over to their nightstand for a glowing screen.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right. And before they speak a single word to their parents, the very first voice they hear for the day isn't a family member. It's an influencer.
Wow.
It's some stranger living, thousands of miles away, projecting through a phone speaker. And the terrifying reality we are dissecting today in this deep dive is this. Before a school ever has the chance to teach this child who they are, the algorithm already has.
Yeah. And it is a startling image for sure. But what's vital to understand here is that this isn't science fiction anymore.
Right.
We aren't talking about some speculative dystopian novel. This is simply the baseline reality of childhood in the modern world.
Which is just wild to think about. And the reason we are tackling this today, for you listening, is because of an incredibly dense, genuinely paradigm-shifting stack of research we've compiled.
Absolutely dense.
Yeah. Our primary anchor today is a really profound piece of writing called The Algorithmic Parent, The Silent Theft of Childhood.
Right.
But we are cross-referencing it with a massive array of deep dive articles and sociological studies. We've got pieces like How Screens Change, Why Nobody Lives in the Present Anymore, and why kids trust influencers more than parents.
Which is a fascinating one, by the way.
Oh, totally. We also have the death of privacy in modern life, and we're looking at data on the future of human connection and why young men and women feel disconnected.
Yeah, we really pulled from everywhere for this.
We did. We're even pulling insights from why social media rewards toxic behavior, the internet made everyone a brand, and some speculative work on what happens when AI raises the next generation. So it's a lot.
It is an expansive stack, for sure. But, the through line connecting all of this research is singular and stark.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the core premise is that the internet, not schools, not parents, not the local community, is now actively raising children.
Exactly.
We're going to look at how an invisible machine, like a machine built purely to capture and monetize human attention, is fundamentally shaping how kids think, speak, dress, behave, and most crucially, how they construct their own identities.
Yes, their entire sense of self.
Right. But I want to start by looking at why this hasn't triggered, a universal societal panic. If an invisible entity was raising our kids, you'd think there'd be alarms sounding everywhere. But the threat is disguised, isn't it?
It is brilliantly disguised. The reason we don't treat this algorithmic rewiring like a 4-alarm fire is because the internet doesn't look dangerous to a parent.
Right? It just looks like fun.
Exactly. It looks entertaining. If a parent glances over their child's shoulder, what do they actually see? Bright, vibrant colors.
Yeah.
Funny videos of cats, trendy dances, Minecraft clips.
Yeah, gaming streams.
Right, gaming streams, and content that is frequently labeled as quote-unquote educational. It just looks like a harmless distraction.
But let me push back on the novelty of that distraction for a second, because if I'm listening to this and thinking about the kids in my own life, my immediate thought is, well, haven't kids always had distractions?
Oh, of course.
My parents complained that I watched way too much television. Their parents complained that they read too many comic books or listened to the radio too much.
Right, the classic generational panic.
Exactly. We had video games, we had Walkmans. So I really need to understand the mechanical difference here. Is this actually a new threat? Or just the latest version of adults panicking over a new medium?
So what's fascinating here is that is the exact trap most adults fall into when analyzing this. We project our historical relationship with media onto the current landscape.
Oh, interesting.
But the architecture of the medium itself is fundamentally different. When you watched a cartoon on a Saturday morning in 1995, that broadcast was a one-way street.
Right, the TV didn't care who I was.
Exactly. The television was just a passive emitter of light and sound. It didn't know who you were. It didn't know if you laughed at a specific joke or if you looked away during a commercial or, if a certain character made you anxious.
It was completely static.
Yes, static is the perfect word.
So it's the difference between a static environment and a reactive one. Think of it like this. The media we grew up with was like a traditional playground.
Okay, I like that.
You walk to the park, you slide down the metal slide, you swing on the swings, you build a sandcastle. The playground stays exactly the same regardless of who is in it.
Right, the slide doesn't change shape.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Eventually the sun goes down, you get bored or tired, and you go home. But the algorithmic internet, It's like sending your kid into a playground that is actively watching them play.
Those-
If it notices they linger on the slide for an extra second, it instantly constructs 10 more slides, each one steeper and faster.
That's a terrifying image, but it's so accurate.
Right. It monitors their heart rate, their micro-hesitations, the exact angle of their engagement. It reshapes the slides and swings in real time, mathematically optimized to ensure they never, ever want to leave that playground.
That is exactly the shift we are talking about. The transition from passive consumption to bidirectional surveillance.
Bidirectional surveillance.
Yeah. The internet has essentially become a babysitter, but it's a babysitter equipped with supercomputers that never, ever sleeps.
It's always watching.
It actively monitors everything. It tracks what a child clicks, sure, but it also measures scroll velocity.
Wait, really? Scroll velocity?
Yes. It measures exactly how many milliseconds they pause on a specific frame of a video before moving on. And it aggregates that data to build a shadow profile of that child's psychological state.
That is so invasive.
It is. It learns what triggers their anger, what triggers their laughter, and crucially, what triggers their deepest insecurities.
And then it just feeds that back to them.
Endlessly. Underneath that colorful facade of Minecraft clips and trendy dances is a highly sophisticated, multi-billion-dollar neural network designed for one singular purpose, which is behavioral addiction.
Keeping children addicted.
Yes. Every single swipe is a data point. Every scroll is actively rewiring their neural pathways to expect a specific cadence of stimulus.
Which brings up a really critical mechanical question. If this machine's ultimate goal is to keep kids inside this digital playground forever, how exactly is that altering their internal clock?
Oh, dramatically.
I want to pull from the How Screens Change research here because it talks about the sheer unprecedented volume of consumption.
Right.
We are looking at an average kid today consuming more raw, disparate information in a single afternoon of scrolling than previous generations might have consumed in weeks or even months.
Yeah, the context switching is just violent. I mean, think about it. They're scrolling past news about a geopolitical conflict.
Right.
Immediately followed by a makeup tutorial.
Oh, man.
Followed by a tragic personal story, a funny dog video, and then a trend about mental health. Boom, boom, boom. All within 60 seconds.
But the human brain isn't designed to process emotional whiplash at that speed. You can't grieve a tragedy and laugh at a dog within a 2-second window and actually process either of those emotions.
You can't. You really can't. And that is why none of this information stays in the brain long enough to coalesce into anything meaningful.
It never becomes wisdom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wisdom requires processing time. It requires a neurological digestion period.
Yeah.
As a result of this fire hose of shallow context switching, we are seeing a total collapse of sustained attention spans. Patience is just disappearing.
Disappearing entirely.
And for these children, the very concept of silence, of just sitting alone in a room with their own internal monologue, feels physically unbearable.
There is a really melancholic observation in the source why nobody lives in the present anymore that ties directly into this.
Oh, I know the one you mean.
Yeah. Historically, a child would sit in their room, profoundly bored, and out of that deep, uncomfortable boredom, they would invent games.
Right. They'd use their imagination.
Exactly. They would imagine entire worlds. They would stare at the ceiling and daydream, processing their reality. Today, the research suggests boredom lasts exactly 3 seconds.
3 seconds. It's staggering.
The moment a child feels that slight, creeping discomfort of being understimulated, a glowing screen miraculously appears in their hand to assassinate that boredom.
The eradication of the 3-second window is perhaps the most neurologically damaging aspect of all of this.
Let me play devil's advocate here, though.
Sure, go for it.
Because I'm sure you at home might be thinking this too. Why is getting rid of boredom inherently bad? I mean, if I'm standing in line at the grocery store or the DMV, I am thrilled to have my phone to read an article or check emails. Boredom is unpleasant. Why is it so terrible that kids don't have to suffer through staring at a blank wall?
Well, because we are fundamentally misunderstanding what boredom actually does to the human brain.
Okay, tell me more.
Boredom is not an empty, useless space. It is a biological necessity. Neurologically, when you are bored, your brain activates what is called the default mode network.
The default mode network.
Right. This is the network responsible for autobiographical memory, for empathy, for imagining the future, and for complex problem solving.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. When the brain is starved of external stimulus, it is forced to search for stimulus internally. It connects seemingly unrelated dots. It processes the social interactions of the day.
It makes sense of the world.
Exactly. It asks the big questions like, who am I? What do I care about? How do I navigate this conflict I had at school today?
So by instantly killing the boredom with the screen, we are effectively short-circuiting the brain's natural digestion and identity formation process.
Precisely. By eradicating those micro moments of boredom, the algorithm actively prevents the developing brain from ever entering the deep thought state required to convert raw data into actual wisdom.
That makes so much sense.
You are left with the continuous shallow present. There is no past reflection. There is no future planning. There is only the immediate dopamine-driven anticipation of the next video.
That is incredibly heavy when you really sit with it, because as adults, we are victims of this exact same rewiring.
Oh, totally. We're all caught in it.
I mean, for everyone listening, think about the last time you were in your car and hit a red light. How instantly did your hand twitch toward your phone?
Probably within 2 seconds.
Right. We reach for it the second the microwave has 30 seconds left on the timer. Now take that adult lack of impulse control and imagine you've never known anything else.
That's the terrifying part.
Imagine your brain physically developing from the age of 4, with that 3-second limit hardwired into your neurological expectations.
It alters the physical architecture of the developing mind. We are raising a generation that literally lacks the neurological pathways to be alone with themselves.
Which begs the question, why children? If the algorithm is doing this to all of us, and we just admitted we all reach for our phones at red lights, why are kids the primary targets? Why is the fire hose aimed so aggressively at them?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really goes down to the cold math of platform economics.
Platform economics, okay.
Yeah. The tech companies discovered very early on that children are, mathematically speaking, the perfect algorithmic customers.
Wait, I want to unpack the word customer there.
Sure.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because when we think of a customer, we think of an adult with a credit card walking into a store with purchasing power. Kids don't have credit cards. So in what economic sense are they the perfect customer?
They are the perfect customer for an economy that trades in attention, not fiat currency.
Oh, I see.
Children are in a developmental stage that makes them uniquely vulnerable to the exact mechanics these platforms use to generate engagement. They are highly emotional. They are impulsive.
They're curious.
Intensely curious about the world and their place in it. And crucially, they lack the cognitive defenses to recognize manipulation.
Because their brains literally haven't finished building those defenses yet.
Exactly. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for impulse control, complex long-term planning, and understanding future consequences, does not fully develop until a human being is in their mid-20s.
Right. So it's completely unbalanced.
Utterly. So you have an algorithm backed by thousands of the smartest behavioral psychologists and machine learning engineers on the planet, armed with supercomputers that process millions of calculations per second, pitted against the underdeveloped prefrontal cortex of a 9-year-old.
It is not a fair fight.
It's not a fight at all. It's a slaughter.
The phrase from the research that stuck with me is, one video becomes 10, 10 videos become a lifestyle.
And that transition from a single video to a lifestyle is where the true value lies. A child's attention is now literally one of the most valuable resources on Earth.
I really want to emphasize that framing for you listening. Valuable resource. Historically, when we talk about resources, we talk about extracting physical commodities from the earth.
Oil, gold, things like that.
Exactly. Oil, gold, lithium, timber. Or, in the last 20 years, we've talked about data as the ultimate resource. But this research forces a paradigm shift.
It really does.
It's not just the data they want to sell to advertisers. It is the attention itself. Childhood attention is the actual commodity being mined from our living rooms and bedrooms.
That's right.
You have billion-dollar companies fighting tooth and nail, A/B testing every single pixel, optimizing every notification chime, just to extract one more second of unbroken focus from your kid.
And if you look at the business models of these platforms, it explains the ruthlessness of the extraction.
Right.
These companies do not build addictive behavioral loops because they have some cartoonish, villainous desire to harm children.
They aren't comic book villains.
No, they do it because their entire corporate existence, their fiduciary duty to their shareholders, depends on infinite growth. The metric that dictates their stock price is engagement or time on device.
Time on device.
Yeah. The algorithm is just a mathematical equation optimizing for that specific variable. It is completely indifferent to the moral outcome of the content it serves.
It doesn't care if the video it recommends teaches a kid how to play the piano or teaches a kid how to build a bomb.
Exactly. It doesn't care if a video makes a child smarter or if it makes them deeply clinically depressed. It only cares about the duration of the session.
Addicted users are profitable users.
Addicted users are profitable users.
Yeah.
That is the foundational cold reality of the attention economy.
It reminds me of a giant automated combine harvester driving blindly through a field. The harvester doesn't care what it's picking up. It doesn't differentiate between wheat, rocks, or toxic weeds. It is just mechanically built to harvest whatever is in front of it.
That's a great way to put it.
And right now, it is harvesting the critical developmental years of an entire generation. So let's follow the timeline. Once the algorithm secures that watch time, once it successfully traps the kid in the playground and the platform shifts from being an entertainment option to a lifestyle, what is the next domino to fall?
This is where we shift from the economics of attention to the sociology of identity.
Okay, sociology of identity.
Yeah, when you synthesize the data from the sources, why kids trust influencers more than parents, and the privacy in modern life, you see a profound structural societal shift. We are witnessing the mass outsourcing of identity formation.
Outsourcing identity.
Yes. A 12-year-old today is often copying the mannerisms, the cadence of speech, the political beliefs, and the moral compass of strangers online far more than they are listening to the adults in their physical environment.
It's a total unvetted replacement of the traditional role model. The text highlights this incredible, almost absurd contrast. You have a teacher who went to a university, got a master's degree in early childhood development, spent years studying pedagogy, cognitive behavioral milestones, and how to effectively communicate knowledge.
Right, highly trained professionals.
And then you have a 19-year-old sitting in a gaming chair, chugging an energy drink, screaming over a video game match, bathed in the glow of a ring light. And that 19-year-old holds exponentially more psychological sway over the child's worldview than the educated teacher does.
It sounds absurd when you lay it out like that, but psychologically, it makes perfect, terrifying sense when you understand the architecture of the medium.
Why is that?
We have to look at why kids trust these influencers so implicitly. It is driven by the deliberate cultivation of parasocial relationships.
Let's define the mechanics of that. Is a parasocial relationship just the modern digital version of having a poster of a boy band member on your wall, or is the actual architecture of this interaction fundamentally different?
Oh, it is fundamentally different in its intimacy.
How so?
Well, a traditional parasocial relationship is one-sided, right? You extend emotional energy toward a celebrity who doesn't know you exist.
Right, like being a huge fan of Michael Jordan or Madonna.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But historically, that celebrity was distant. They were on a movie screen or a concert stage. There's a clear boundary. Today, the influencer's entire content strategy is designed to simulate authentic, peer-to-peer intimacy.
So they act like your friend.
Yes, the camera lens is eye level. They aren't on a stage. They are sitting on their bed in their messy bedroom. They look directly into the lens and say, "Hey guys, I'm having a really hard day. Let me tell you a secret."
They bypass the performance and simulate vulnerability.
Exactly. To the underdeveloped brain of a child, this doesn't register as watching a broadcast. Neurologically, it feels identical to FaceTiming a best friend.
Which means the algorithm has essentially bypassed the parents entirely?
It really has.
Historically, parents were the ultimate gatekeepers of a child's social environment. You knew who their friends were, you knew their teachers, you knew the parents of the kids they had sleepovers with.
You saw who they were hanging out with.
Exactly. Now, the algorithm acts as the gatekeeper, and it is actively flooding the child's most intimate environments. Their bedroom, their morning routine, their walk to school with thousands of highly charismatic voices that the parents have never vetted and will never even see.
And as a result, the foundational building blocks of identity are being crowdsourced to an optimized machine. Kids are learning how to project confidence from TikTok algorithms.
Right.
They're constructing complex frameworks of morality from YouTubers who prioritize shock value for engagement. And they're literally building their sense of self-worth from the consensus of anonymous comment sections.
Imagine the sheer futility of being a parent trying to compete with that. I mean, you listening, imagine trying to parent this. You're trying to mentor your child, telling them to be kind, to practice patience, to value hard work.
Good luck.
Right. And then they open their phone and are immediately bombarded by an influencer making $10 million a year, specifically by being obnoxious, chaotic, and demanding instant gratification. The incentives are completely inverted.
You are fighting against a mathematically optimized reality distortion field. And the integration of the source, why social media rewards toxic behavior, is crucial here.
Yes, let's talk about that.
It's not just who they are listening to that is the problem. It is the underlying rules of society that the algorithm enforces.
Yeah.
The very fabric of what a child believes is valuable in a human being is being actively rewritten by recommendation engines.
Let's dig into the mechanics of those rules, because the economics of extremes are fascinating. The algorithm operates like a digital coliseum.
A coliseum, I like that analogy.
If you think about the architecture of a recommendation engine, it inherently rewards extremes. Why? Because high arousal emotions keep people on the platform longer.
Right.
Anger, outrage, fear, visceral disgust, or intense envy, these emotions spike your heart rate and freeze your thumb on the screen. Low arousal emotions like quiet contentment or nuanced understanding don't generate clicks. So the louder and more extreme you are, the faster your content is distributed.
And this raises an important question. What lesson does a child internalize when they are marinating in this environment for 6 hours a day?
What do they learn?
They learn, fundamentally, that attention equals value.
Not kindness.
No.
Not deep intelligence, not empathy or character. Just raw, unfiltered attention.
Exactly. If you look at the gladiator analogy you just brought up, it fits perfectly. If you are sitting in the stands of a coliseum, the crowd doesn't cheer for the gladiator who is cooperative and polite.
Right. They don't want to see a peaceful negotiation.
They cheer for the one who is violent, loud, and dramatic. They cheer for blood. If a child tries to practice quiet kindness in the middle of a digital arena designed for combat, they will be completely ignored. Or worse, targeted.
Man, that is bleak.
If kids are growing up in an environment where they are socially, culturally, and even monetarily rewarded for aggression and vanity, why on earth would they cultivate quiet virtues?
They wouldn't. The incentive structure actively penalizes it. Which leads us to the psychological devastation outlined in "The Internet Made Everyone a Brand."
Yes, the branding of the self.
If a child believes their intrinsic worth as a human being is directly tied to the volume of eyes on them, it breeds a profound, paralyzing terror of being ordinary. The research notes that kids today don't just want to live their lives, they feel intensely compelled to perform them.
The performance of self. This is where the collapse of privacy intersects with identity. When you view yourself as a brand, every moment of your existence is potential content.
Everything is commodified. Going to the park is content. Hanging out with a friend is content. A private text message is screenshot and turned into content.
Everything.
And it gets so incredibly dark. Every emotion becomes public performance. You have kids setting up ring lights, checking their angles, and hitting record so they can film themselves crying over a breakup to post it for strangers.
It's heartbreak.
Every single vulnerability and insecurity is externalized and monetized.
And the algorithm specifically preys on these insecurities because an insecure user is a searching user.
That makes sense. They're looking for a fix.
Exactly. Let's look at the specific divergent ways this manifests. The recommendation engines are highly attuned to gendered vulnerabilities.
Oh, this was in the source. Yeah.
You have a young boy who maybe lingers on a video of a minor altercation or a controversial podcast clip. The algorithm notes that high arousal engagement and immediately begins testing his boundaries, feeding him increasingly aggressive, hypermasculine, toxic content.
Because it knows that keeps him watching.
Right, because that rabbit hole maximizes retention. Eventually, his entire worldview is so warped by this constant exposure that basic human empathy or compromise starts to feel to him like weakness.
And on the flip side, the algorithm targets a young girl's self-image.
Yes.
It notices she paused for half a second on a fitness video or a diet tip or a makeup tutorial. So it relentlessly, systematically bombards her feed with heavily filtered, mathematically impossible images of perfect influencers.
It's ruthless.
It weaponizes the natural human instinct for social comparison. Long before she even officially becomes a teenager, she has been neurologically programmed to hate her own reflection, constantly chasing an aesthetic that doesn't actually exist in reality.
These outcomes are not accidents.
Right.
They are the predictable results of a system functioning exactly as it was designed. These feedback loops of outrage for boys and physical inadequacy for girls are the exact mechanisms the platforms use to maximize session times.
So the app creates the problem to sell the cure.
Yes. The app creates the inadequacy and then positions itself as the only place to search for the validation to cure it. We are watching the psychological terraforming of millions of children by a system that nobody voted for and that barely any of the engineers who built it can fully control anymore.
So when we zoom out from the micro-tragedies of the individual child and look at the macro picture, we are seeing massive behavioral shifts. The death of boredom, the outsourcing of identity to strangers, the obsession with algorithmic attention, the weaponization of body image.
It's all connected.
These individual shifts have cascaded into a generational social crisis.
We are witnessing the slow creep of an entirely new social reality. And the most insidious part of this transformation is its gradual nature.
Right, there was no warning.
There was no giant warning sign.
Yeah.
There was no singular dramatic event where society collectively stopped and said, wait, what are we doing to our children?
It's the classic tragedy of the frog in boiling water. You put a frog in a pot of cold water and slowly turn up the heat. The frog won't jump out because the change in temperature is so gradual that its nervous system doesn't register the lethal threat until it's already boiling.
It's a perfect metaphor.
Think about the reality for parents over the last 15 years. You have intense economic stress, the rise of dual-income households, the erasure of the boundary between work and home. Parents are chronically exhausted.
Oh, absolutely. They're just trying to survive.
You come home from a grueling 10-hour day. You have to cook dinner, do the laundry, answer 3 emails from your boss at 8 p.m., handing your kid an iPad for 45 minutes just so you can catch your breath and regulate your own nervous system.
Yeah.
In the micro, in that specific Tuesday night moment, it feels completely harmless. It feels like a necessary survival tactic.
And we cannot shame parents for that survival tactic. We just can't.
No, of course not.
But we have to look at the macro result. In the macro, stretched over millions of households over thousands of nights, those micro decisions became catastrophic. Millions of tiny changes over time. That is how the theft of childhood occurs.
It's a substitution of realities.
Yes, exactly.
Family dinners, which historically were the bedrock of social grounding for a child. The physical space where they learned how to converse, how to read body language, how to debate, how to listen, were slowly replaced by glowing screens on the table.
The screens just took over the space.
Uncomfortable but necessary family conversations were interrupted and eventually replaced by the dopamine hit of push notifications. Physical playgrounds, where kids learned the messer realities of conflict resolution, spatial awareness, and physical boundaries, were replaced by isolated screens in separate bedrooms.
And what is the ultimate biological and sociological result of all these tiny substitutions?
Right. What's the impact?
This is where the data from the sources, the future of human connection, and why young men and women feel disconnected, paints a profoundly grim picture. We have manufactured an entire generation that is growing up more theoretically, technologically connected than any humans in the history of our species.
More connected than ever.
A teenager today can instantly transmit a high-definition video message to someone on the other side of the planet in milliseconds. And yet, the empirical data shows they are feeling more profoundly alone than any generation on record.
The statistics on youth mental health are terrifying, and the correlation to the rise of algorithmic media is undeniable.
It really is.
Clinical anxiety is rising exponentially. Depression rates are hockey sticking. Loneliness has become a documented epidemic among the young. You have kids walking the halls of high schools who possess thousands of followers on Instagram or TikTok, but who literally do not have a single deep, trusted physical friend they can call when they are having a panic attack.
Because social media is providing the illusion of connection without the substance. It exploits our biological drive for social cohesion, but it provides no actual psychological safety.
I always think of it like the mechanics of junk food.
Well, that's a good comparison.
Let's say you are starving, your body desperately needs calories and nutrients. You eat an entire family-sized bag of potato chips. Physically, your stomach stretches. The mechanical sensation of emptiness goes away temporarily. You feel full.
Right, but you're not nourished.
Exactly. But your body received absolutely zero actual cellular nutrition. No vitamins, no protein. You are functionally, biologically starving while possessing the sensation of being full.
Wow.
The algorithm feeds our deeply evolved biological need for human connection with digital junk food. It gives you likes, comments, retweets, and view counts. It mimics the flavor of socialization, but it provides zero psychological nourishment. It quietly starves real human relationships while keeping you entirely distracted by the metrics.
That is a flawless analogy for the mechanisms at play. We have systematically substituted the deep, complex, inherently messy reality of human interaction for frictionless algorithmic validation.
Frictionless, that's the key word.
And the crucial point is that human beings, especially developing children, need the friction. The friction is where the growth happens.
That's a great point.
They need the awkward silences to learn patience. They need to misread facial expressions to learn empathy. They need to experience the discomfort of apologizing in person. They need shared physical spaces to understand community. When you strip all the friction away and replace it with a curated, frictionless digital feed, you end up with profound structural isolation.
Okay. We have painted a heavily researched, admittedly bleak picture here.
It is heavy.
We are up against an invisible billion-dollar machine that never sleeps. A machine that mines attention, outsources identity to strangers, mathematically rewards extreme behavior, and actively starves real human connection.
Yep, that's the reality.
If you are a parent listening to this, or an educator, or just a citizen who cares about the trajectory of our society, you might be feeling a sense of overwhelming defeat right now.
Which is completely understandable.
How do we fight a supercomputer? So let's pivot to the final stretch of our deep dive, reclaiming childhood. What is the actual pragmatic path forward?
Well, what I appreciate about the source material is its deep empathy for the position parents are in. It explicitly acknowledges that parents are fighting a battle they were never, ever trained for.
How could they be?
Exactly. You cannot reasonably expect a parent who works a demanding full-time job to possess the specialized knowledge required to defeat an algorithm engineered by thousands of tech PhDs to be as addictive as a Vegas slot machine.
It's an impossible standard.
It is an entirely asymmetric war. How do you compete with a machine that knows your child's micro habits, their pupil dilations, and their secret insecurities better than you do?
You can't. Not on the machine's terms.
No.
But the research is also unequivocally clear that throwing our hands up in the air and surrendering isn't an option. And interestingly, the answer the experts provide isn't just a Luddite retreat. The answer isn't throw all the iPads in the ocean and move to a cabin in the woods.
Right, because that's not realistic.
Banning technology completely, enforcing absolute digital prohibition, is not only impractical in a digitized economy, but it might actually be counterproductive. These kids have to live and work in a digitized world eventually.
Exactly. Total prohibition often just creates a massive blind spot and turns the technology into forbidden fruit. The solution proposed by developmental psychologists is far more nuanced, and frankly, it requires significantly more active labor from the parents.
Okay, what does that look like?
It starts with radical awareness. It requires ongoing, uncomfortable conversations. It demands strict, consistently enforced environmental boundaries. But crucially, the most powerful tool a parent has is education. We have to teach children exactly how digital manipulation works before the internet gets its hooks deeply into their neural pathways.
So what does this all mean in practice? To me, the entire framework boils down to one word, which is intentionality.
Intentionality. Yes.
You simply cannot passively parent in the digital age. You can no longer just hand over a device, hope the content filters work, and hope for the best. You have to actively, constantly, relentlessly demystify the machine for your kids. You have to show them the strings attached to the puppet.
Let's break down what teaching manipulation actually looks like on a pragmatic day-to-day level.
Yeah, let's get specific.
It obviously doesn't mean giving a 7-year-old a dry lecture on platform economics or the default mode network.
Right, they just tune you out.
But it does mean sitting down physically next to your child while they're watching YouTube and actively asking structural questions. When the next video autoplays, you reach over, pause it, and ask, why do you think the app just started a new video without you asking it to? What does the app want you to do right now?
Wow, so you are shifting them from a passive consumer to an active critic. You teach them that the app isn't a neutral tool, and it certainly isn't their friend. It has an agenda. It wants their time.
Exactly. You expose the architecture. When an influencer uses aggressive, loud language or manufactures a dramatic conflict, you pause the video and say, why is he yelling right now? Does he really feel that angry, or do you think yelling gets him more views and makes him more money?
That's brilliant.
It is about cultivating a deep, reflexive sense of critical thinking so that the child begins to recognize on their own when their nervous system is being hijacked and their emotions are being actively harvested for profit. You give them the vocabulary to understand the invisible forces in their own digital environment.
I absolutely love that approach. You are basically turning your kids into digital mechanics.
Yeah.
Instead of just letting them drive the car blindly at 100 miles an hour, you are pulling over, popping the hood, and showing them how the engine actually works.
Yes. You show them the engine.
You show them the pistons of the outrage algorithm.
Yeah.
You explain why the infinite scroll was literally modeled after slot machines. Because the ultimate warning of all this combined research is incredibly stark. If parents don't shape a child's mind intentionally, the algorithm will do it automatically. There is no neutral ground left.
None.
The ultimate stakes are nothing less than the theft of their childhood.
And that is the true unquantifiable cost. We aren't just talking about a few lost hours of productivity or bad posture from looking down at a phone. We are talking about the fundamental loss of the cognitive space and the physical time required to develop a healthy, grounded, empathetic human identity.
Okay, let's take a breath and synthesize the incredible ground we've covered in this deep dive today. We started by looking at how the algorithmic internet operates as the ultimate Trojan horse, disguising a massive bidirectional surveillance and behavioral addiction machine as harmless, brightly colored entertainment.
Right. And we explore the tragic neurological eradication of boredom and how the 3-second limit on silence is actively destroying the developing brain's ability to synthesize raw information into actual wisdom.
We analyzed the ruthless mathematics of the attention economy, recognizing that a child's focus is no longer just a state of mind, but a highly monetized, fiercely contested commodity.
Yes. And we discussed the mass outsourcing of identity formation, exploring the architecture of parasocial relationships, where influencers are actively replacing parents and trained educators as the primary moral arbiters for children.
We looked at the digital coliseum, unpacking how the algorithm inherently rewards outrageous, toxic, extreme behavior, leading to the exhaustion of the performance of self and the weaponization of deep adolescent insecurities.
And we tracked the slow, almost imperceptible creep of this crisis, the frog in boiling water, and how it has resulted in a generation that is technically more connected than ever, yet suffering from an unprecedented epidemic of profound loneliness, surviving solely on the digital junk food of algorithmic validation.
And finally, we discussed the pragmatic path forward. We explored the absolute necessity of intentional, active parenting, the importance of setting friction-inducing boundaries, and the critical need to explicitly teach our children how to spot and resist digital manipulation before the algorithm permanently hardwires their reality.
It's a massive challenge, but an essential one.
To everyone listening right now, whether you are a parent in the trenches trying to navigate these muddy waters, an aunt and uncle, a teacher, or just a citizen of the modern world trying to understand the shifting ground beneath us, this matters to you.
It matters to all of us.
Because this algorithmic rewiring doesn't just stay neatly contained on the screen. It spills out into the physical world. It actively degrades the culture, the political empathy, and the fundamental fabric of the society we all have to share.
It is arguably the most massive, uncontrolled social experiment in human history, and we are running it live on the most neurologically vulnerable among us.
Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with today. We've spent this entire time talking about what is happening right now in the present moment to these kids, but I want you to project this forward. Let's look down the road.
Okay.
If an entire generation is currently being raised by an invisible machine that mathematically rewards outrage, that incentivizes constant, exhausting public performance, and that pushes human behavior to absolute extremes just to maintain engagement metrics, what happens to our society in 20 years?
That is the million-dollar question.
What happens when those exact same children whose developing brains were physically shaped by 3-second attention spans and the toxic gladiator coliseum of social media are the ones writing our legislation? What happens when they're the ones running our global businesses, sitting on our local school boards, and raising the next generation of children?
It's sobering.
If we don't actively, intentionally teach them how to disconnect and see the machinery now, will they even remember what a real, deeply rooted human connection looks like when it is finally their turn to lead the world? Think back to that opening image, that 7-year-old waking up in the dark, reaching for the glowing screen before their feet even hit the floor. The sun is coming up. The question we all have to answer is, what kind of world are they actually waking up to? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Do yourself a favor today. Look up from your screen, find someone you care about, and have a real, messy, friction-filled human conversation. We'll see you next time.